Hello to all my fellow adventurers into fantastical worlds. Today I'm doing a recent reads wrap up, and by recent I mean over the last few months. I haven't recorded in a while. Recently I've decided that my taste in books is just watching morally gray characters make questionable decisions and watching them reap the consequences and still somehow rooting for them. I'm super excited for this video because some of these books have been tap dancing in my head on repeat. And I feel like if I can just talk about them, maybe I can lessen the chokehold they've had me in. Maybe if I share my pain will be halved. It's not all pain though, okay? I'm kind of overselling it. It's some bittersweet lovers, vengeful spirits, the rising of the dead. We have some vampires, werewolf, dragons, romance, a little gothic horror, if you like a little spooky like I do. I've read it all in the last few months. And some of these books have made me question my judgment of character. I stopped believing in myself for a little bit. It's that serious. I'm going to talk about these books in the order that I read them in. So let's get started. First up, we have Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stevens. I love you, I have loved you, and I will love you. They've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one. Instantly, that's on the cover. Instantly, I was hooked. I was invested. By page 3, my jaw had already dropped. Hand over my mouth, flabbergasted. I was so invested in this book. I was invested in Evelyn and Arden's lives and their love, why their fates were entwined in what it was. Like, why did they have to do the same song and dance over years, over multiple lifetimes? I needed answers. They were not giving me answers. I was literally saying, I was staying up so late. I mean, it didn't take long. As you can see, it's not super big. But it kept me up late into the night, literally just needing answers. Laura Stevens did an incredible job just making every one of their lives like super different and interesting to read. It was like going into a new adventure throughout every chapter. Evelyn and Arden lived so many interesting lives as they grappled through time. Some of the most interesting ones to me were on the Western Front as soldiers. That one hurt. In a horde asylum. That one also hurt. And Siberia. Siberia was devastating. And every lifetime you were rooting for him. And every lifetime you knew what would happen. Her take on reincarnation and your loved ones finding you in different forms, having different relationships throughout your lives, your different lifetimes, kind of align with my own beliefs. And even if that doesn't align with your beliefs, it's still super interesting to read. It's just really like, once it has a hold on you, it has a hold on you. I really like this story because their love withstood the most unimaginable circumstances. To me, this story was really about two souls always finding their way back to each other. Their love wasn't rooted in like physical attraction, a soul deep bond, unexplainable bond that for me I would only explain as being soulmates. To see unending love like that was very like endearing. It was very touching to read, especially for me as a bleeding heart romantic. Their love wasn't based in gender or sexuality. They were in love with the nature of each other's soul. Their love was so deep and complex. I was very moved. And I also couldn't have guessed why their fates were entwined in the way that they were. Even though I definitely did try my best. Like, I thought I was Nancy Drew. I was gonna figure it out. Overall, it was a very, for me, incredible read. I wish I could read it again for the first time. Overall, I'll give it a solid 4 stars. Maybe 4.5. I waffled about it. If I had to convince you with one line to read this book, listen. Perhaps he was my true homeland. Our existence a language that only we could speak. Say you don't want to read it. You're lying. Next up, we have The Dragon Waits for Thunder by KX Song. While I was a very, very big fan of the first book, this one I was waiting for with like bated breath. Ran to the store the very same day that it came out. I think I made a short getting it. I finally read it and I was gonna make a whole video about it, but then it fell so flat for me. I just didn't even want to. That's just me personally though. I just feel like the first book left me with so many plot points that I wanted to see resolved. And then the second book, coming to the second book, it was just so much going on that I felt overwhelmed, basically. It was like so many new characters introduced and like a whole new like political plot going on. Freaking a whole evil family that I just did not even... I feel like KX Song does an incredible job writing characters that you will hate, which honestly kudos to her, because I was flipping the pages mad, but I just felt like it was a lot going on. And then once I did finally get the plot points resolved that I was looking for, I just feel like since it was so many different moving parts, I just feel like there wasn't much time put onto those parts where I really would have liked to see like a comeuppance. Basically, it was just like bam, it's over with. But I think overall it was still a good book. It was a lot for me at the time, and I was just like, upset. I was upset. I was upset. It was still a very good read, I would say. And I don't know. I feel like at the end she was setting up for like another book with maybe a different main character still with Maylin in there, which I don't know if I'll even read that because I just feel like there was so much. I will say I want to just keep saying, oh, it was so much. It was still good. I just feel like in book one, I was really rocking with Maylin, and I was really like, I was excusing all of her mistakes because she was young and still learning. And she is, in this book, still young, but I just feel like she made the same mistake as far as burying her head in the sand and not facing problems until it was so monumental. It was kind of insurmountable. And it was just like, come on, sister. That's one thing for me. And then the first book, I would say, the first book was so like action-packed and fast-paced, and it was so like engaging, I feel like, that it was even like a little romantic subplot going. And as a romance reader, I was not reading the book for the romance. It was just like, I could have done without it, honestly. I wasn't mad at it, but the romance was kind of just like, oh, a nice little bonus. For this book, I feel like so much of it was making me upset that the romance is what saved it, I will say. This is the book I was talking about made me really question my judgment of character, because there's one character I was riding so hard for, completely did a 180 and gagged me. It was one scene that literally brought tears to my eyes. I had to put that book down and take a little walk. I said I had to take my glasses off for the tears welling up in my eyes, I will say. So I just had to set that down. I finished it, but it was hard. Overall, I'd give this book a solid 3 stars. Just because, like I said, it was just so much going on. I feel like it would have been better off just making it into a separate book, a second book. Another book, or just a little less moving parts for me. But overall, still a good read. Next up, at the end of last year, for Halloween 2025, I read The Original Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I was reading this book and realized, first of all, she's so cute. I was reading this book and realized that I knew nothing about Frankenstein. The only thing I ever knew was like the cartoonish green Frankenstein, the one from Hotel Transylvania. Like, I only knew Frankenstein as the risen from the dead, of course, with lightning, but that was it. The original Frankenstein, nothing is touching it. Mary Shelley, her house must have been on fire while she was writing this book, because it was just straight heat. No, I'm kidding. I would say Mary Shelley was a genius at really creating that gripping like horror atmosphere. And even more than just being like a horror story, I feel like it touched on the age-old question of nature versus nurture. would Frankenstein have become a monster if he had not been abandoned? If he had been shown any kindness by any of the humans that he encountered? If he hadn't spent months in like isolation, just sitting with his misery and despair and loneliness and the constant rejection he faced, would he have chosen a different path? For me, it's hard to say, but I do think if he had been shown any compassion or acceptance, it's very possible that he wouldn't have, his mental state wouldn't have become so warped. I think if he had been given any kind of fighting chance, he was kind of just created and just tossed out into the world. I felt sympathetic towards the creature, Frankenstein's creature, for most of the story, because he really was just this intelligent being, intelligent and emotional and very aware, who to me just wanted exception. He just wanted acceptance from someone to see his value, someone to see that he was a kind creature. And then once he kept getting like basically smacked in the face by the world so many times, it just took this tragic turn. Like I said, I felt sympathetic for him for most of the book. Once he took his little turn into just like embracing his need for revenge, that's when he lost me. But for a good part of it, when you hear his story, it's just like, okay, Frankenstein is not really a monster. They created him, okay, to be this way. I also think that this book it showcases the dangers of unchecked potential. Victor Frankenstein, the creator of his creature, he did not have to do anything that he did. He was rich. His family was rich. He was rich in loved ones, rich in finances. He could study anywhere that he wanted. He is the one who decided to play with death, to play God, and just do these obviously mad experiments that if he had taken 1 second to really look at what he was doing, he would have maybe been like, hey, it's cool that I can do this. It's awesome that I'm smart enough to do this. But should I do this? Probably not. He was the author of all of his misery, of his own fate. He was an Icarus that flew too close to the sun. And my hot take, Victor Frankenstein was the real monster. Argue with yourself. Or you know what? Get in the comments and argue with me. But I think he was the real monster. And if you do agree with me and you want to join Victor's hate club, I feel like I'm starting one. I'm starting my own. It's probably some out there already, because he was just a very irritating man. But get behind me if you want to join my Victor Frankenstein hate club. Overall, I was enraptured by this book. Even like the older prose, I feel like added to the atmosphere and added to just how interesting of a read it was. I was invested the whole way through. I loved it. It was my favorite book that I read in 2025. Definitely a 10 out of 10 read for me. 5 stars. I would recommend it to anyone. And I'll probably definitely be reading it again for Halloween this year. On to my next book, which is really 3 books because it was a series. This was the first series that I read in 2026. The Poppy War trilogy. Now, Book Talk has led me astray before. I don't know if you all can see The Court of Thorns and Roses. I read the first book of that one, and Jesus, I don't know. It was posted like this incredible series, and I feel like after reading the first book, I felt nothing. But this recommendation I got from Book Talk, I feel like kind of makes up for the fact that I had to endure that. This is The Poppy War. I saw it from Eden's Archives. I love her. And I saw a few videos a few months ago where she was really talking this book series up, and honestly, it deserves it. This book series, though, is the emotional devastation I was talking about. The emotional devastation I was talking about. I don't have the words to describe how badly this series wrecked me. Reading this series is genuinely a form of suffering. That's the only way I can put it. It's that serious. Multiple times when I was reading it, I was not okay. And if I think back on it too hard, I still won't be okay. So sometimes I just have to not think. This series follows Rin, who's a war orphan with not many good prospects for her future. She really has like two options: marry an old crusty man, or ace the Keju and enter Sanagard, which is an elite military academy. That's how you know life is bad. When you need to enter a military academy to maybe be okay in life. Who wants to just join the military for fun? Not I. To fight for a country that's really not set up for you, that's really not improving your life at all, that's how you know it's bad. At Sanagard, she faced prejudice because of her skin color, her poverty, being from the South, her gender. She was surrounded by fair-skinned elitists, and it was like being a fish out of water. I truly don't believe that she was prepared for like how hateful people can be, when she definitely earned her spot at that academy. Reading her struggles before the war, you're already like, dang, she's going through it. She was going through it. But once the war begins, cut the cameras. War changes people. One of my favorite quotes from the books is, it was in the first book, I believe. Yes, from book 1. It reads, "Children stop being children when you put a sword in their hands." Our characters were all practically children when they went to that academy. They could learn as much as they wanted as far as martial arts techniques, tactical skills, weapons training. Nothing could have prepared them to watch their friends die, to look a soldier in the eyes from the enemy soldiers, to look that soldier in the eyes and recognize that they don't see you as human. They don't see any value in your life. There's no reasoning with them. Nothing could have prepared them to see the aftermath of these battles and the suffering of innocence. War had our characters doing things that, at the beginning of the series, genuinely felt like unfathomable. Like, at multiple points, I was gobsmacked. I literally physically had to just like take a break from the books. Certain points are just gut wrenching. The war crimes you read about, the decisions some of our characters made, watching like a good character, Sweetheart, go from being a sweetheart to like poisoning rivers, say, you know? People like grew and changed. They made their choices. Their friends today could be their enemy tomorrow. And their empire itself was never really a united empire. There was massive gaps between the wealth, massive gaps between the North and the South. There's classism, elitism, colorism, and overall just the greed of people in power. People in power just using the less fortunate as little foot soldiers, as little pawns in their grand scheme of things. I hope I'm saying her last name right. R.F. Kuang does an amazing job encapsulating everything that comes along with war. I feel like reading about her wars is different than reading other war fiction, because nothing felt glorified. Everything just felt very real and gritty and devastating. She was very detailed and thorough of just kind of showcasing everything that comes along with war. The victories, the repercussions, physically and mentally, the evils of man, the psychological impact on the soldiers. She really like covered it. She really got down. Like you could tell she put so many hours into just studying and understanding and putting herself into this headspace. She dug into religious fanaticism, colonialism, delusional racist stereotypes, classism, and the lasting effects of war on people's lives and homes. Nothing about the war she described felt glorified, and from the impact on our characters, it all felt just very ugly and devastating. Rebecca Kuang was obviously inspired by real history, and she interweaved it with fantastical elements like shamanism to make like a truly incredible series. Rin to me was a very fascinating main character. She made so many bad decision after bad decision, but you could kind of see where her headspace was at and her reasoning behind these decisions. even if you didn't agree with them, because some of them you definitely not gonna agree with. You could see where she was coming from, and that she was kind of trying to fight against these invaders, I feel like, without even having a true understanding of what she was fighting for certain parts of it. Like, I feel like a lot of times she just charged in head first, nothing strategic about it sometimes, and didn't really think, like, who am I fighting for? What am I fighting for? What do I believe in? Overall, though, she does feel like a main character that you can root for, and her friendship with Katai was my favorite part of the series. Her and Katai's friendship was I feel like it was so well written and interesting, and I do love a good friendship in a book, and theirs was incredible, and Katai was my favorite character. I'll put that out there. Overall, I give the series, let me get her up. She's very cutesy, very glorious. Overall, I give the series a 10 out of 10, 5 stars. It is a very heavy read, but I would recommend this to anyone who's not afraid to cry. We're halfway through my reading so far. Did I say I was doing 10 books? Because it is 10 books. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, obviously. If you agree with any of my ratings or disagree, definitely comment down below. Let me know who your favorite characters are, characters that you hated, why you disagree with my ratings if you do. If you love these books, if you've read these books, maybe recommend me some similar books. I would love to see it. Other than that, we're on to our next book. Next up, we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I just felt like after the emotional damage that I sustained after reading the Poppy War series, I needed something much more lighthearted, just to look after myself mentally. Let me stop. It wasn't that deep, but it was low-key that deep. So I just went to my comfort genre, which is romance, and I'm a huge fan of werewolf romance. Specifically, for a few years, I was reading just every werewolf romance that you can imagine. Like, give me a growly alpha werewolf who will just kill for his mate. Any day. Give it to me any day, and I'm gonna eat it up every time. I don't care. It never gets old. This book specifically was an arranged marriage between a werewolf and a vampire for species alliance reasons. Very cutesy. I'd say my favorite part of this book was the character dynamics, as far as watching Misery and Lo interact and just get closer. And Misery's relationship with Lo's younger sister was also very, very touching. It was very cute. It put a lot of cute moments in there. Overall, for me, it was just a fun, quick read, just as like a palate cleanser. I did love the very obvious yearning that went on in there. So for me overall, I'll give it 4 stars, and I give it 4 stars. It was very cute. Moving on to our next book. I went light, right? I went a little more lighthearted, but then I did come back to R.F. Kuang because I loved her. After the Poppy War series, I'm a big fan. And I already had this book in my room. I bought it when it came out just because, honestly, I loved the design. It sounded super interesting. I loved how it was set up. And it said hell is other people. And I honestly agree. In this book, Catabasis, I hope I'm saying it right. Catabasis, that's how I've been saying it. In this book, Alice Law and Peter Murdoch are our 2 main characters, and they journey into hell to bring back their professor. Try to bring their professor back to life so they can get letters from him, which really speaks to their priorities in life. Once again, Rebecca has written a beautifully detailed world. I loved her take on magic, pentagrams, and the theories that made magic possible. I feel the main lesson of this book was the dangers of losing yourself to ambition and forgetting the little things in life that matter, and neglecting your physical, mental, emotional well-being, all in the pursuit of one goal. You can forget who you are. and you can forget what really matters. And you also become susceptible to people who will prey on that ambition. It also showcased the dangers of having like a sociopathic, narcissistic man, man or woman, but in this one, a man in a position of power without any kind of balance of powers. I would say no one was really overseeing him just because their professor, just because he was so notable in their society. The book showcases many instances where he should have been punished for what he was doing, but either their academy and the academic world just turned a blind eye, or they just thought he was so brilliant, like, oh, these things come with, these are like the price of being brilliant. And it's just like, her take as far as world building on hell reflecting a person's life made hell kind of, and as far as the setting, it made it kind of more digestible and familiar. And I did like that take. It was very cool to see, like, and here hell, certain courts was just like, it reflected their school. It was cool to see like her interpretations of what the punishment would be as far as the sins. It kind of covers like pride, greed, lust, wrath, tyranny. It was very interesting to see these people punishments, and to also see the shades or souls, to see Peter and Alice interact with them. And you could kind of just, you could see why these people were in hell in the in the courts that they were, and why they were probably never going to make it out of those courts. Yeah. I will say, for me, Alice's narration was so irritating to me. She started grating on my freaking nerves. Like, so many things that she was thinking in her mind were so blatantly wrong and morally just amoral. They were morally, the thing she was saying was crazy at some points. And it made me think like, girl, you might just need to stay down here. You might just need to stay in hell, because that might be where you belong. But there's room for growth for everyone. I will say getting in her head definitely shone a light on how she got into some of those sticky situations that were, some of them she very much embraces where she was wrong in those situations. On the other hand, I loved how brilliant both Alice and Peter were in their respective fields, and how they kind of played off of each other's intelligence. It really complemented each other, and it was interesting to read just literally how smart they were. I love to read a book where they can make me feel like, what? I have to read that again. Though it was a hellish journey, it wasn't too heavy a read, and I found it immensely entertaining and interesting. So I'd give it overall a 4.5 stars and a hug for Peter. And also another round of applause for Rebecca. Next up, we have Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. Very cutesy. Very cutesy. I will admit that when I bought this forever ago, and the red pages did get me. And also it was a super interesting premise. I never buy the books just because they look cute, but it helps. And then what really gets me is like when they really put a description on it. That's gonna make you go, that's crazy. That book must be crazy. In this book, we follow Arcady, who's a human thief who's just trying to make a better life, and Evren, the last male dragon, who was dragged to Arcady's world by a spell gone awry that Arcady cast, not meaning to drag a dragon across the veil. When he did come across, dragons in this world have a predator form, where instead of being a dragon, they're a little more humanoid, and then can use magic he used magic Evren to make himself appear more human and blend into society. The story is set in a world where humans worship dragons as gods, but they're unaware that humans and dragons used to coexist harmoniously until the Fire Nation attacked. I mean, until the humans attacked, basically. They betrayed the dragons, attacked, stole some of their magic, and just banished them to a dying world. A truly juicy premise, if you ask me.. Like, imagine praying to your gods, and 2 seconds later, 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 2 se they'd kill you at the first opportunity they could get to take back their world. Puh, crazy. Surprisingly, and I only say surprisingly because from the description, you will never know, but this story is set in a queer normative world, where every stranger is referred to as they, them, and then upon like meeting the person, they would introduce themselves and then do a hand sign to identify their pronouns. So they could be they, them, any, she, her, he, him. Our main character, Arcady was non-binary and used any pronouns. And Everin, he's not from Arcady's world. In his world, the gender that you are at birth is just your gender. I feel like Arcady being non-binary and using any pronouns kind of added an additional layer of contrast once we learn about the responsibilities and preconceptions that are forced onto Everin as the last male dragon. As for Arcady had way more freedom as far as like who I am and what approach I'm taking, and Everin was kind of just set into this mold, which really motivates a lot of what he does throughout the book, even once morally. And once he like starts to get closer to Arcady and such, you can see that this isn't really who he wants to be or what he aligns with, but this is what has been preached to him his whole life. Enemies to lovers will always reign supreme as the juiciest and best trope to me. I don't care about nobody else's opinion. No, I'm just kidding. Argue with yourself once again, or argue with me. Say friends to lovers. Throw that out. Forced proximity. Throw that out as well. I'm just kidding. But I just love enemies to lovers overall. The built-in tension interspersed with like the shared hatred turned longing was really what had me hooked and was really my favorite part of the story. Because once again, enemies to lovers. I would say there was really solid world building, a government conspiracy, a mysterious illness, and a third POV that you kind of just had to figure out at first, like, how is this connecting to the main story? And also magic that demands a price. Like, this how you know you stole that magic from them dragons and it's really not for you. That's besides the point. Overall, I give this story a 3.5, wobbling to maybe a 4-star, but I'm gonna stick with my 3.5 for now. It's a very interesting read, and I'll definitely be reading the sequel soon. And lastly, but definitely not leastly, because I immensely enjoyed this book, we have A Study in Drowning by... I know who it's by. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. My most recent read. It's still a bookmarking here because this last little part has the preview to the next book in it. I haven't read the preview to the next book yet just because I needed time to sit with what happened in this book. Overall, for me, the most interesting part was the atmosphere of this book. It was so well written. It was very immersive. Everything felt kind of like dark, damp, and eerie and haunted in a way. And you were always waiting for like the other shoe to drop. You were always waiting for the big bad to pop out, like to show themselves, basically. Overall, the setting is what made the story very immersive and made it a nail biter at certain points. Our main character, Effie Sayer, has always believed in fairy tales, and we enter the story in her first semester of college, and she's obviously struggling and kind of crumbling under the pressures of college, the misogyny that she faces as the only female student in architecture college, which she had to settle for, even though her scores were good enough to enter the literature college, which is her true passion. The literature college doesn't accept women. Something about women not having the mental fortitude to understand literature, basically. To understand the words that are right in front of them, basically. Effie already has so much trauma from her childhood and now the added trauma from her university life that she really is drowning when we encounter her. And her one anchor, her one touchstone, her one life raft is this book, Ankarad. It's her favorite book, Ankarad, which is written by Emrys Mirden, her favorite author. And she receives the opportunity to go and renovate his manor out in like deep in the south, when she arrives at the manor, though, she encounters Preston Hillary, who is a literature student. And so in her mind, she automatically just like sees him as this enemy, especially because he's from a different nation. And she sees him as this enemy who basically is living her dream. And she uncovers that he is there to basically prove that her favorite author, Emrys Mirrodin, is a fraud. Whoa. Once again, we have two intellectuals who I feel like intellectually they play really well off of each other. And it made for a very interesting read. And despite being an egghead at times, I really loved Preston's character. Honestly, I was rooting for him. We were all rooting for you. How could you? I really love Preston's character. He was such a sweetheart. And in this time period that the story is set in, misogyny is like rampant in the land. And he was a green flag male the whole time. Even when Effie was low-key being a little... She's been a little problematic, I will say. And she was like really taking out her frustrations on that man. The folklore aspect of the book was also one of my main draws to the book. And the suspense around if the folklore was true. In the North, they don't believe in it, but in the South, they kind of take folklore as fact. It was very interesting to try to get to the truth of if these tales were real or not. Because Effie, I love an unreliable narrator. And Effie is painted as this unreliable narrator just because from a very young age, her mother takes her to the doctor and the doctor gives her pills. She's told that she experiences like hallucinations and delusions, and the pills that she takes are supposed to help keep her firmly rooted in reality. So it kind of paints her as this unreliable narrator when it comes to the things that she sees and the situations that she's encountered. The situations that she encountered where it feels like very eerie and very like something is not right, something is amiss, and then the next day it'll just be back to normal, like this never happened. It makes you wonder, is she experiencing these things, or is her mind getting the better of her? And it makes you wonder, like, is the big bad that we're waiting for, will they ever appear? Or will she realize at a certain point, like, these things that I'm seeing and believing, I'm believing because of the trauma I experienced. And this is what helped me cope with the world. It was very interesting. It made it very, very eerie. Oh, it made it like, oh. And it was certain points of the book that just felt like so wrong. Like you could tell something was so wrong there. But she was just running from her reality and didn't confide in anyone. And honestly, the people that she tried to confide in before were not people she could rely on. That plot device really helped build the suspense and the feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I will say that one part of Effie's characters that at a few points at the beginning was kind of making me like irritated just was the fact that she would have so many moments where it's just a normal interaction, and then she's like, oh, tears sprang to my eyes and I had to stop myself from crying, when it's like, whoa, you're just upsetting yourself kind of. But because I just hate when characters are like, boom, anything, I'm crying, like, please relax. But once you get into like really the meat of her backstory and just everything that she is dealing with, you do understand why she is always at that emotional edge. Like I said, she was drowning. Get it? A study in drowning. Crickets? Okay. Deserved. This book deals with misogyny. There were so many men in this book that I was genuinely wishing evil on. I was wishing for all of the hair to fall out of their heads and for them to never achieve anything notable in their lives. It really touches on trauma and how you can be gaslit kind of into believing the misconceptions that other people have about you. Once you hear it so many times, you kind of internalize that. And it shows the power of a woman realizing her worth and her true character and that her voice matters instead of drowning in the roles and expectations forced upon her. Overall, I give it 5 stars. I wish I could read it again for the first time. There's a sequel, so I also will be buying that very shortly. But it was overall a very incredible read. It was very, like I said, very immersive. It will keep you up at night. And yes, I also love the romance. But let's not talk about thoughts. That really concludes my reading wrap up. As you can see, I put myself through a lot. I put myself through a lot in these past few months, just as far as the Poppy War. That series still haunts me. It's still now one of my favorite series. And I love R.F. Kuang, and I love The Study in Drowning. Overall, I would say out of all of these books, the Poppy War series, Frankenstein, and A Study in Drowning were my favorite reads so far. They were all just super incredible for me. 5 out of 5. 5 stars. 10 out of 10. If you've read any of these books and would like to share your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. I love to just talk about books. We can agree, we can disagree, we can talk about our favorite characters. Give me your ratings. Give me if you like these books or not. Maybe give me, like I said earlier, some recommendations that are similar. I would love some recommendations that are similar to my favorite picks on here. Subscribe for more videos from me, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.